Moving into a new home is supposed to be the beginning of a beautiful new chapter in life. It represents independence, success, and a safe sanctuary away from the chaos of the outside world. But for 28-year-old Sarah Vance, her dream home quickly became a psychological prison, a terrifying claustrophobic nightmare that would eventually unfold into one of the most twisted and unbelievable true crime cases in modern history. It was the summer of 2019. Sarah, a highly successful freelance graphic designer, had just purchased a beautiful, isolated Victorian-style house at the very end of Whisper Lane, in a quiet, heavily wooded suburb of Oregon. The house was massive, perhaps too big for one person, boasting 3 floors, a sprawling basement, and intricate antique architecture. It had been sold to her at an unusually low price, a foreclosure deal that Sarah simply couldn't pass up. The previous owner, a reclusive architect named Arthur Pendleton, had supposedly abandoned the property years ago and passed away overseas. For the first 2 months, everything was perfect. Sarah spent her days renovating the old house, painting walls, and setting up her design studio in the master bedroom. She documented her renovation journey on Instagram, gaining a modest following of people who admired her DIY skills. She was happy. She was safe. Or so she thought. The terror began in late September. It didn't start with a broken window or a loud noise in the middle of the night. It started with something far more quiet and far more sinister. It was a Tuesday morning. Sarah woke up at her usual time, 7 a.m. She walked down the creaky wooden stairs, wrapped in her morning robe, and headed to the kitchen to brew her coffee. As she reached for her favorite mug on the kitchen island, she froze. Her heart skipped a beat, and a cold shiver ran down her spine. Sitting perfectly in the center of the granite countertop was a photograph, a physical, old-school Polaroid picture. Sarah's hands trembled as she picked it up. The photo was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of a street lamp coming through a window. But the subject of the photo was unmistakable. It was Sarah. She was asleep in her bed, tangled in her white sheets. The angle of the photo suggested that whoever took it was standing less than 2 feet away from her face while she slept. Panic immediately set in. She dropped the photo, grabbed a kitchen knife, and searched every corner of the house. The closets, the basement, the guest rooms. Nothing. All the doors were locked from the inside. The windows were shut tight. The home security alarm she had installed on the front and back doors had not been triggered. Sarah called the police. 2 patrol officers arrived within 15 minutes. They conducted a thorough sweep of the property, but they found absolutely no signs of forced entry. No muddy footprints. No broken glass. No pick locks. "Are you sure you didn't take this yourself, ma'am?" one of the officers asked, holding the Polaroid in an evidence bag. Maybe a timer on a camera? Or perhaps a boyfriend playing a very bad prank. Sarah was furious and terrified. She lived alone. She didn't own a Polaroid camera. The police filed a report for a suspected break-in and stalking, but without any physical evidence or a point of entry. There was little they could do. They advised her to change her locks and upgrade her security system. Sarah did exactly that. She hired a top-tier security firm to install state-of-the-art motion sensors in every hallway, high-definition night vision cameras pointing at every entrance, and brand-new deadbolts on every door. Her house was transformed into a digital fortress. She felt a false sense of security return. Whoever had gotten in before would never be able to get in again. But 3 weeks later, the impossible happened. It was a Sunday morning. The alarm system was still fully armed. The green light on the keypad indicating the house was secure. Sarah walked into her master bathroom to take a shower. When she wiped the condensation off the fogged-up mirror, she screamed. Written in the condensation on the glass in large, jagged letters were the words, "You look so peaceful." And taped to the mirror, right below the writing, was another Polaroid photograph. This one was even more disturbing. It was a picture of Sarah sleeping, but this time, a gloved hand was visible in the frame, gently resting on a lock of her hair on the pillow. The intruder had not only been in her bedroom again, but they had touched her while she slept. Sarah collapsed on the bathroom floor, hyperventilating. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911. When Detective David Miller arrived at the scene, he immediately pulled the footage from the expensive security cameras Sarah had installed. Detective Miller sat in Sarah's living room, watching the footage from the previous night on his laptop. He watched the front door camera. Nothing. He watched the back door camera. Nothing. He checked the motion sensors in the downstairs hallways. Zero triggers. According to the digital logs, the alarm had been armed at 10 p.m. and had not been breached, hacked, or bypassed in any way. This is impossible, Detective Miller muttered, rewinding the footage for the fifth time. No one came into this house last night. Then how is this photo here? Sarah cried, pointing a shaking finger at the Polaroid. How did he touch me? Detective Miller looked around the massive, silent Victorian house. The walls seemed to close in on them. He realized they were dealing with an entirely different kind of predator. The intruder hadn't broken into the house. The horrifying truth was beginning to dawn on the detective. The intruder was already inside, and they had never left. The concept is known in the darkest corners of the internet as frogging. It is a terrifying phenomenon where a person secretly lives inside someone else's occupied home without their knowledge. They hide in attics, basements, or crawl spaces during the day and only come out at night when the homeowner is asleep or away at work. They eat your food, they use your bathroom, and they watch you. Detective Miller immediately ordered a specialized tactical search team to tear Sarah's house apart. They brought in K-9 units, thermal imaging cameras, and architectural blueprints of the Victorian home. They were looking for hollow spaces, false walls, or hidden compartments. Sarah packed a bag and stayed at a local hotel. She couldn't bear to step foot inside that house again until she knew it was clean. On the second day of the search, a police officer examining the third-floor guest bedroom noticed something strange about the dimensions of the room. According to the blueprints, the room should have been 12 feet deep, but measuring from the interior wall to the exterior window, it was only 9 feet. There were 3 feet of unaccounted space. The officer pressed his ear against the drywall and tapped it with his knuckle. It sounded hollow. With Detective Miller's authorization, the tactical team took a sledgehammer to the drywall. The plaster shattered, revealing a dark, narrow, and incredibly hidden crawl space that ran the entire length of the house, cleverly concealed behind the HVAC ventilation shafts. The police shined their flashlights into the darkness. The smell hit them first, a foul mixture of sweat, stale food, and human waste. As they crawled into hidden space, they uncovered a fully functioning, terrifying micro-apartment built right into the bones of Sarah's house. There was a dirty sleeping bag laid over cardboard. There were dozens of empty water bottles, wrappers from protein bars that had gone missing from Sarah's pantry, and a bucket used as a makeshift toilet. But it was the walls of the crawl space that made the seasoned detectives feel physically sick. The wooden beams were covered in photographs. Not just the 2 Polaroids that Sarah had found, but hundreds of them. Photos of Sarah cooking dinner. Photos of Sarah watching TV. Photos of Sarah stepping out of the shower. The stalker had drilled tiny, almost invisible pinholes through the drywall in almost every room of the house. He had been watching her every single move for months. He knew her routine intimately. They also found a journal. The entries were erratic, written in frantic, scratching handwriting. The stalker referred to Sarah as his angel, writing delusional fantasies about how they were living together, how she was making the house beautiful just for him. He wrote about watching her sleep, describing the rhythm of her breathing. But the most chilling discovery was a small, battery-operated radio and a police scanner. The stalker had been listening to the police frequencies. He knew the tactical team was coming. By the time they smashed down the wall, the sleeping bag was cold. The stalker had slipped away into the woods behind the house before the police even set up their perimeter. The news of the Frogger Whisper Lane hit the local media like a bomb. The community was in a state of sheer panic. People were tearing open their attics and checking their closets. But Detective Miller wasn't satisfied. He sat in his office, reading through the stalker's twisted journal. Something was bothering him. The level of architectural knowledge required to build that hidden room, to navigate the ventilation shafts without making a sound, and to tap into the home's electrical grid to charge his devices. It wasn't the work of a random homeless drifter. It required intimate, expert knowledge of that specific house. Miller dug into the history of the property. He pulled the file on Arthur Pendleton, the reclusive architect who had previously owned the house and supposedly died overseas in a boating accident 3 years prior. The detective requested the international death certificate for Arthur Pendleton. When it arrived, he cross-referenced the dental records and the autopsy report from the foreign country. The records were sketchy, incomplete, and highly suspicious. Miller then took the handwriting from the stalker's journal and sent it to a forensic calligraphy expert to compare it with Arthur Pendleton's original architectural blueprints and signature from the house's deed. The results came back a 99% match. Arthur Pendleton wasn't dead. He had faked his own death to escape massive financial debt. But he was so obsessed with the Victorian house he had designed that he couldn't leave it. He had built the hidden compartments years ago. When the bank foreclosed on the empty house and sold it to Sarah, Arthur was already living in the walls. He watched her move in. He watched her renovate. And slowly, his obsession with the house transferred into a psychotic obsession with the woman living inside it. The police now had a name and a face. They launched a statewide manhunt for Arthur Pendleton. But Arthur was a ghost. He knew how to hide. Weeks turned into months, and the trail went completely cold. Sarah, severely traumatized, refused to sell the house. In a bizarre psychological twist, she claimed that selling the house would mean letting him win. Instead, she armed herself. She bought a licensed 9mm handgun, took extensive self-defense and tactical shooting courses, and installed even more aggressive internal security measures. She wanted him to come back. She was ready. But the story of Sarah Vance doesn't end with a heroic woman defending her home from a monster. In the world of true crime, reality is rarely that simple. And Detective Miller was about to uncover a plot twist so dark, it would flip the entire case upside down and leave the public questioning everything they thought they knew. It had been 6 months since Arthur Pendleton fled into the woods. Winter had draped the town in heavy snow, and the case of the Phantom Frogger had slowly faded from the front pages of the newspapers. But Sarah Vance had not forgotten. She had leveraged her terrifying experience into massive internet fame. She started a YouTube channel and a true crime podcast detailing her survival story. She became an icon for women's self-defense. She signed a highly lucrative book deal to write a memoir about her ordeal titled The Eyes on the Walls. Her bank accounts were overflowing. She had turned her trauma into an empire. Then, on the night of December 14th, the silence of Whisper Lane was broken once again by the deafening crack of a gunshot. At exactly 1:30 a.m., Sarah called 911. Her voice was surprisingly calm, devoid of the frantic panic from her first call months ago. "I need an ambulance," she said coldly. He came back, the man from the walls. "I shot him." When Detective Miller and the uniformed officers arrived, they found a gruesome scene in the basement. Arthur Pendleton, looking emaciated, unkempt, and wearing filthy wilderness survival gear, was lying dead on the cold concrete floor. He had been shot twice in the chest with Sarah's 9mm handgun. A large hunting knife lay on the floor just inches from his right hand. Sarah was sitting upstairs at her kitchen island, sipping a glass of water. She told Miller that she had heard a noise in the basement. She grabbed her gun, went downstairs to investigate, and found Arthur trying to pry open a sealed air duct. According to Sarah, Arthur lunged at her with the hunting knife, screaming that the house belonged to him. Having no other choice, she fired 2 shots in self-defense, killing him instantly. It seemed like the perfect, poetic ending to a terrifying nightmare. The brave survivor finally defeats her tormentor. The local news hailed Sarah as a hero. The publisher of her upcoming book immediately moved the release date forward to capitalize on the media frenzy. The district attorney reviewed the evidence and quickly ruled the shooting as a clear-cut case of justified self-defense under the state's Castle Doctrine laws. Arthur was an armed, psychotic stalker who had broken into her home. Sarah was cleared of all charges within a week. But Detective Miller couldn't sleep. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with the crime scene in the basement. He went back to the evidence locker and stared at the photographs of Arthur's body. He looked at the hunting knife on the floor. He read the autopsy report, and then he saw it, the tiny, microscopic detail that unraveled the perfect narrative. Arthur Pendleton was left-handed. When the police had searched his hidden room in the walls months ago, everything was oriented for a left-handed person. His journal entry showed the distinctive smudges of a left-handed writer. His toothbrush, his radio placement, the way he carved into the wood, all indicated left-handed dominance. But in the crime scene photos, the hunting knife was lying perfectly parallel to Arthur's right hand. If Arthur had been holding the knife and lunging at Sarah, he would have been holding it in his dominant left hand. When he was shot and dropped the knife, it should have fallen to his left side. Furthermore, the autopsy report indicated that the trajectory of the bullets was slightly downward. Sarah was 5'5". Arthur was 6'2". If Arthur was standing and lunging at her, the bullet trajectory should have been upward or horizontal. A downward trajectory meant that Arthur was either on his knees or sitting down when he was shot. Detective Miller ordered a full forensic reconstruction of the basement shooting. They used lasers to track the bullet paths. The results confirmed Miller's worst fears. Arthur hadn't been lunging. He had been sitting on the floor, cornered against the wall, when he was executed. The hunting knife hadn't been dropped. It had been meticulously placed next to his right hand after he was already dead. It was a staged crime scene. But proving that Sarah had staged the scene wasn't enough to convict her of murder. She could easily argue that she panicked, or that she misremembered the details due to trauma. Miller needed a motive. Why would this wealthy, famous survivor execute a terrified, starving man and then stage it to look like self-defense? To find the answer, Miller didn't look at the crime scene. He looked at Sarah's digital footprint. He subpoenaed her bank records, her internet search history, and her deleted iCloud backups. What the Cybercrimes Division found hidden in the depths of Sarah's deleted emails was so diabolical, it made Arthur Pendleton look like an amateur. The deleted emails revealed a completely different version of reality. Sarah Vance was not a victim. She was the architect of the entire nightmare. The emails showed that Sarah had not bought the Victorian house by accident. She had extensively researched Arthur Pendleton long before she ever moved in. She knew he had faked his death. In fact, she had found his encrypted posts on a dark web forum where he sought advice on living off the grid. Sarah realized that Arthur was a broken, mentally unstable man who was hiding from the world. She saw an opportunity for fame, wealth, and the ultimate true crime story. When Sarah bought the house, she already knew about the hidden rooms. She knew Arthur was in the walls. For the first 2 months, she allowed him to watch her. She played the part of the unsuspecting homeowner perfectly, but Sarah needed evidence to kickstart her narrative. The chilling Polaroid photos, the message written in the mirror condensation. Sarah had taken those photos herself using a vintage camera she bought on eBay. She had written the message on her own mirror. She carefully planted the evidence to create the illusion of a terrifying stalker, knowing the police would eventually find Arthur in the walls. When the police broke down the drywall, Arthur panicked and fled, just as Sarah had calculated. She immediately launched her podcast, signed her massive book deal, and became a millionaire celebrity. But Arthur's survival in the woods was a loose end. Sarah knew that if the police ever caught Arthur alive, he would tell them the truth. He would tell them that he never took those photos, that he never wrote on the mirror, and that he was just a cowardly hermit hiding from debt collectors, not a psychotic stalker. If Arthur talked, Sarah's empire of lies would collapse. Her book deal would be canceled, and she would be exposed as a fraud. So Sarah lured him back. The Cyber Crimes Unit found a burner phone that Sarah had used to contact Arthur. She had sent him anonymous messages, promising him money and a safe passage out of the country if he came back to the house one last time to retrieve a package she left in the basement. Arthur, starving, freezing in the winter woods, and desperate, took the bait. He sneaked back into the basement on the night of December 14th. Sarah was waiting for him in the dark, wearing noise-canceling earmuffs and holding her 9mm handgun when Arthur stepped into the light. She didn't say a word. She raised the gun and shot the terrified man twice in the chest. She then wiped down the hunting knife she had purchased weeks prior, placed it next to his wrong hand, practiced her breathing to sound appropriately shocked, and dialed 911. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She had engineered a fake stalking, monetized the public's obsession with true crime, and then murdered the only witness to secure her wealth and fame. Armed with the digital evidence, the burner phone records and forensic trajectory reports, Detective Miller secured an arrest warrant. The arrest of Sarah Vance sent shockwaves across the country. The internet, which had fiercely defended and idolized her for months, instantly turned on her. Her publisher dropped her book deal. Her podcast was pulled from all platforms. The beloved survivor was unmasked as a cold, calculating sociopath. During the trial, Sarah's high-priced defense attorneys tried to argue that the digital evidence was circumstantial and that she still acted in self-defense against a man who had illegally lived in her walls. But the jury saw right through facade. The stage hunting knife and the burner phone messages were impossible to ignore. After a heavily publicized 4-week trial, the jury deliberated for only 6 hours. They found Sarah Vance guilty of premeditated first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. As the judge read the verdict, sentencing her to life in prison without the possibility of parole, Sarah didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at Detective Miller with cold, empty eyes, the same eyes that stared into the security cameras, playing the role of a victim while plotting a murder. The house on Whisper Lane was seized by the bank and remains abandoned to this day. It stands as a dark monument to the dangers of the modern true crime obsession. Arthur Pendleton thought he was a watcher in the walls, spying on a helpless woman. But he was nothing more than a pawn on a chessboard, manipulated and sacrificed by a predator far more terrifying than anyone could have ever imagined. In the end, the most dangerous monster in the house wasn't the one hiding in the shadows. It was the one standing directly in the spotlight.